Here we go. Thank you guys for being here and for joining me in a training that I was inspired to give on how to get your partner to change. So I'll just tell you a quick story. I was out for a run the other day. And normally when I go running, I listen to a book or a training or whatever program I'm signed up for. I'm catching up on the trainings, and people are coming in. Join us, everybody. Okay, awesome. So I was out for this. Let me make sure everybody is muted. I haven't done this on Zoom yet, so bear with me, guys. Okay, so all right, cool. Everybody's muted. All right, great. All right. All right, cool. Everybody's muted. All right, good. So anyway, I was out for a run the other day, and normally when I go running, I listen to like words and stuff like that. It's been a while since I've actually listened to music. And I was like, let me listen to music. And then this song came on.
You got to make that change, man.
All right. It's John Legend. I won't jam out for you guys. But I'll basically summarize the so basically John Legend and Snoop Dogg are kind of going back and forth, and they're like, yo, I can change, you know. Snoop Dogg's like, yo, you got a woman, she's off the hizzle. I don't even know what hizzle is, but basically they're saying, you know, like, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna go to church for you. I'm gonna stop pimping around. You know, Snoop is like, yo, if you can get this big boss dog to change, you can, you know, you're a pretty significant and pretty amazing woman, right? So anyway, I thought to myself, wow, people talk to me about this, like, how do I just get my partner to change? And I thought it was worth sharing a little bit about how to do that. Spoiler alert, I don't have any magic tricks or wands that are gonna, you know, that you're gonna sort of wave over your partner and get them to be a different person or change in a dramatic way. But I will say that, you know, excuse me, that I do have some tools and some stories from my own life that I want to share with you. So I hope that that this is helpful for you guys. So I want to rewind. You know, this happened to be around 10 years ago too. This was that I fell in love, right? And my then whatever he was, the guy that I sort of met, right, who's now my husband, happened to be like he had a pack a day smoking habit, cigarettes, and I don't smoke cigarettes. He knows I was into, like, you know, relatively healthy behaviors, and he kind of hid that from me. And so within weeks of us meeting and not even getting very serious, but having a couple dates, he just like kicked the habit. And that's because, you know, when you're really interested in someone, when you really like someone, when you feel that chemistry of being in love, right? It's really similar chemistry to addiction, right? And so I'm sure that gave him a boost, right? That helps. But what did I do? How did I get him to change? How did I get him to quit smoking, right? I didn't do a thing, right? The fact of the matter is that we were young, and when I say young, we were like in a new relationship, and he was into it, right? He was into me big time, right? So the man stopped, and he kind of hid the fact that he smoked so much to begin with. So really good quote. I was going to put a slideshow together. I didn't really do much. This is really kind of off the cuff. I didn't really do much to prepare. Obviously I have things in mind that I want to share with you guys, but excuse me. There's a quote from Tony Robbins. I was going to put a quote slideshow together, and then I was just like, I can't be bothered. What's the quote? Basically, it is, do what you did in the beginning of the relationship, and then there won't be an end. So this is, I think, important to think about. How do you show up in a relationship with somebody? You know, if you can try to really remember, how did you treat each other when it was the beginning, when you were first in love, right? So obviously reality sets in and time goes by, and I got this guy. He ran the New York City Marathon with me, and I'm even more proud of the fact that not that we did it or not that he did it. I had done a couple before, but I was like, I sort of paced us, right? This is back when I could run a lot further than I can today. And we ran the second half faster than the first, which is actually, I think, very impressive, especially for a first time marathoner. So anyway, this was a couple years after the fact. And to be honest with you, time goes by, real life happens. We had kids. We're not like in the throes of that sort of, new and in love intoxication any longer. We are, in love, but it's not that same thing where you can all you want to do is be with the other person, right? Reality sets in and kids came into the picture and, time is not as, whatever. I was going to say as copious, but it is. I mean, that's a mindset issue that I have about time. I'm working on it. But there are things that we both do that neither of the other person likes. So it's funny because my friend Lisa Sharp, who shared this webinar as well, clearcalmspace.com, she is a professional organizer and clutter. She helps people with clutter. And so a lot of people come to her and they're like, how do I get my partner to put his socks away, right? I'm the person who leaves stuff out. And so, how do you get somebody to change their behavior? So he tends to put all my stuff away before I'm done with it. And that frustrates me. But one thing that's been really, that's always been something for me that's important is that, we're healthy and we take care of ourselves. And I'm not like any kind of super health nut freak or anything like that, but, diet can always be improved. I'm a big believer in exercise and, I think it's very important. And it's been honestly a lot harder to get all that stuff done, after having kids and just whatever, excuses. Right. And so that's an issue that I've had a little bit of a sticking point with him about, how do I get him to work out? Right. Here's a man who I want to stick around for a long time. And, his dad died young. My dad died young, because of health issues. And, that's my greatest fear, to lose him. Right. And so obviously, him taking care of his health is really important to me. So, there are many things I could do to talk about this with him. And I have, and it's there are lots of things you can do. And I'm going to share with you guys more about, what the foundation of a healthy relationship is and how you might not be getting what you need. But, I could nag and I have, I'm sure, and things might not change. But what you really need to do, what I really encourage everybody to do, if there's something that you want your partner to do, right? And you have to evaluate, how important is this to me, right? And so, for me, obviously, the health piece is huge. It's super important to me. So what do? I get real honest. I get real vulnerable. I say, this is something I'm super scared of. It would mean the world to me if you started to whatever. And then, really express your truth to your partner, right? That's really what you need to do in terms of what's underneath. You always have to ask what's underneath the desire, right? And so did that produce immediate results? No, because, we are busy and look, I mean, he's not this sedentary person. I mean, we work out together and go running with the kids on the weekends and things like that. But, it's kind of let's have a little more. Right. So I really encourage everybody to think about, what's the desire underneath the desire. And it's always a personal thing. Here's what my fear is. And here's a total solution to that. Obviously it's not going to prevent, any tragedy from happening or anything like that, but it can certainly increase the chance of living longer. Not to get all dire and existential with you guys. Anyway, so I think getting vulnerable is absolutely key. But guess what? That's not going to be the answer. You have to also be able to get vulnerable and take a risk, right? And risk the fact that your partner might not make the change that you want. And honestly, he doesn't really eat vegetables, salads, yes, but that's part of it, right? And then you have to surrender. You have to let go. You have to, being vulnerable takes some, maybe, depending on the quality of the relationship, but it might take some kind of strength or not strength so much as courage, right? It's something I can do quite easily because we have a pretty good relationship, but But the next part might be even harder, which is surrender and letting go and realizing, you know what, this actually might not happen, and this is the way it is, and letting go, right? So this has been something that I don't know. It's been in the picture, I think, since we've moved up here anyway, which has been 2 years. There's almost 2 years. I live in New Hampshire now. We used to live in the city, New York. And recently he started boxing, like 3 days a week religiously. He goes to the gym and he does a kickboxing class. We worked it out, and it's kind of like a whatever. I don't need to tell you the details about the about the thing, but now he's running on the weekends and excuse me, doing some high interval intensity training, whatever, on the weekdays. And it's like, wow, I didn't have to do a thing, right? And so I was like, what made you stop smoking? What made you decide to go kickboxing? And it does have something to do with me, but it also has to do with the fact that, yeah, he recognizes that, this is a value he wants to uphold as well. So the other piece that I want you guys to recognize is that, there's always a mirror thing going on, right? So you have to take care of yourself, right? And it would be easy for me it wouldn't actually, I would become a mess. I would become depressed and grumpy and angry and whatever. But working out is something that I do not even so much yes, for my physical health, but it's how I feel good, right? And I don't do it nearly as much as I'd like or for as long as I'd like, but I still get it done. And that's part of it. You have to be the change, right? Don't just sort of point fingers. This is what I see all the time. People are pointing fingers. That's part of it, is that you have to be the change that you want to see in the other person. I'm so sorry. I have this the remnants of this cough that's just annoying. So bear with me. So that's part of it. Okay. Now I want to talk with you guys about, what a strong relationship really is all about. And I can tell you more about, getting your partner to change and things about that. But this may be repeat to some of you guys if you've been watching me for any amount of time, but I want to talk about the foundation of a strong relationship, because without that, and without understanding your own patterns in love, you might just kind of get into this place where it's just a constant struggle. Okay. Now, if anybody is feeling like it's just a constant struggle and that you can't connect and that you just can't reach each other, I want to encourage you that there is a way out. Okay. And that you're not alone, because it's actually pretty common that people get into these very similar dynamics in their relationships that you don't have to be victims to. Okay. So a lot of my work, as you may or may not know, is when I deal with couples, it's basically straight from Sue Johnson, who is a psychologist who's created something called emotionally focused therapy, which is really rocked my world and changed the way I've looked at everything in terms of love and how love works. And obviously there's more to it than just that, but she's been a real leader in my world. And some of the most simple and easy stuff. The thing is that love is really easy and simple, right? It doesn't mean it's an easy. But something I reference all the time, because it's just so easy to talk about and to think about. It's not as easy necessarily to live, but it's super simple, is when you're in these struggles, right? This is direct from Sue, but when you're in these struggles with your partner, and maybe you're arguing about, the glass that's left on the table, right? Or the laundry that needs to be put away, or whatever it is, the fact that you just won't take care of your health, whatever it is, right? If it becomes one of these blood boiling, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to smash your head through a wall kind of fight, right? It's more than just that, the rest of the stuff, right? So in my example about, the importance of taking care of your health, it's about me feeling scared, right? And feeling like I really care about you, and I'm really scared that, life will go on and years of sedentary lifestyle will accumulate, and, you'll get cancer and die, basically, right? So it's about me and my needs, right? That's what it's about. And look, if I ask him to, make wheatgrass juice on a daily basis and do a shot at, it's just not going to happen, because there's no part of him that can get behind that. Okay. I have to accept that. I don't do that. So whatever. But I really want you to think about, if there is something that you're up against with your partner, What's underneath the desire, right? So he and I can get into arguments about like me leaving my cup out and then he puts it away prematurely and da-da-da. And look, I mean, we can laugh about it because that's just something that we have going on. If it became like a one of these like contentious issues, and if you notice that you have a lot of those, it's not usually about whatever you think you're arguing about. It's about feeling like your partner doesn't see you, doesn't understand you, doesn't respect you, doesn't get it, right? So whenever you're in this sort of blood boiling kind of argument with him or her, the real question isn't like, will you just do this already? It is, are you there for me? Okay, this is straight out of Stu's work. Are you there for me? And I'm going to teach you an acronym. Again, this may be like review, but it's important to always kind of look at it again and again. The acronym is ARE, are you there for me? And ARE stands for the 3 key things that you need to keep your relationship foundation strong. And that is A, for accessibility, right? You want to be accessible to each other. You want to be able to like know that if you go to your partner, he or she will be there for you. There's like an open door policy, right? That's accessibility. R stands for responsiveness. And that's, pretty obvious. Like you want to respond to each other, right? There was an experiment that was done years and years ago by a psychologist, Ed Tronick, I don't even know how to say his name, but basically it's called the still face experiment. And this was done between I want to say 12-month-old, but whatever, like a kid, like a little tiny, small toddler type kid, and a parent, right? The mother. And basically they'd be like in this like, ooh, like, oh, like I see you, you see me. And, they're in this beautiful kind of like, exchange. And then it's like this emotionally responsive exchange that's happening. And then the mother's face just goes totally still, like stops responding, like dead eyes looking at the kid. And the kid bugs out. You can look it up on YouTube. The kid freaks out, like bugging out everywhere. And basically goes through this stage of like protesting and like saying, hey, like, wow, like, look, getting louder and louder. Like, how big can I get? And pointing and flailing and just decompensates. Okay. That's in like a 2-minute exchange. Right. And here's the thing. We're not much different than that in our adult romantic relationships. If you are not responded to, right? Like, seriously, like you're supposedly the most important person in the world to me and you're not going to respond, it's bad. So responsiveness is the second most important, not the second most important, but the second piece of the ARE acronym. So A stands for accessibility. R stands for responsiveness. It's very important to respond to each other. And I'm going to tell you another story. I'm guilty. I talk to women entrepreneurs a lot. And men entrepreneurs as well. But I've worked with quite a few people who are in business, and I'm guilty because I'm like, can be engrossed in my own business and endeavors and things like that. And one time we were, probably more than one time, I'm thinking of one time example though, as an example that we were, it was like the weekend and we were all in the car, the family, and I was like on my phone, obviously like this, like glued into my phone, like a crazy person in the phone, which we all can become. And I don't know, responding to an email or God knows on Facebook or whatever. And he says something, he's driving and he says something to me like, oh, look at that thing over there or whatever. And I don't hear, like I goes in one ear, out the other. It doesn't even go in one ear. I literally did not hear him. And then he's like, what the, like, why aren't you responding to me? And I was just like, oh, sorry. Oops. Responsiveness is key, right? So he freaked out again, not like big freak out, but like, whoa, pay attention to me. Like, hello, I'm here. I'm your husband. I'm sitting next to you. Pay attention to me. That doesn't mean you can't be in the same place and not do separate things. Obviously I could have said, I need 5 minutes of, silence, not even that, but I need a couple minutes to just do this. I could have said that. I didn't communicate that. I just got engrossed in my phone and that happened. So anyway, responsiveness is really important. We got to respond to each other, and it can be hard to do when, we're being pulled in like 30 different directions with distractions and, the World Wide Web pulling us away. Anyway, so there's that. And then the last part of this foundation for your relationship is E, A-R-E. E stands for emotional engagement. And this is kind of like the Shangri-La of all of it, is that you need to be emotionally engaged with each other. You need to care about each other. You need to ask each other questions. Again, remember the Tony Robbins quote, do what you did in the beginning of the relationship and there won't be an end, right? Care about each other. Be responsive. Be emotionally engaged with each other. It's really, really important. So when you have those three things as the foundation of your relationship, and you know that you can answer affirmatively yes to the question, are you there for me, right? Everything else becomes a lot easier, right? So then you can start to, really ask yourself, okay, like for me with the health example, like, yes, this is important to me. And yes, like I see that, it's not like he's not smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. He's not like shooting up a bag of heroin or whatever. Like those things would be real problems for me. And, sitting is the new smoking. I'm sitting here. I need to figure out what to do about that. But what am I trying to say here? Those things would be real problems for me. But with, the other piece of it is that, there are a lot of reasons why it might be difficult to get out and work out or whatever. And it wasn't like I kind of let it, I literally was able to surrender and let it go. Primarily because I know that the commitment trumps anything else, right? Our commitment to each other. And knowing that, in ways that it really does matter, like, yes, he is there for me, right? So and I'm not saying those desires of mine weren't important, but we also have a certain amount of autonomy, and we can't force each other to do anything, if that makes any sense, right? So let me see. Okay. So another interesting fact, John Gottman is a relationship researcher. He's a psychologist as well. He's been studying relationships for the past 40 years or so. And he was famous. He was known for creating what's known as the Love Lab in Seattle, where he actually observed partners. And he's really been known for a lot of his research on what makes marriages work and what makes them fail, and the differences between happy couples and unhappy couples. One of the things he's found, I just love this statistic, it's that 69% of the problems among happily married couples, almost 70% of their problems are perpetual, right? Wow. Like that means that they don't get resolved. Whereas closer to 30%, like 31% are actually solvable, right? And the 70%, 69%, they're just perpetual. They're always going to have these problems. It's okay to disagree. Disagreement, there's a quote from the Dalai Lama, disagreement is normal, right? On my little slideshow that I was going to give to you guys, that was part of it, but I just couldn't get it together. So disagreement is normal, okay? And that's another thing to think about, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that, your commitment to each other is more important. And I talk about this a lot when it comes to money, because money is a common issue that people bring to me, and people think that money is the number one cause of divorce, because when they say, what caused you guys to break up, people often cite finances as the reason. However, money with marriage and with just about everything else is just a magnifier, right? It's just a scapegoat in this case. And there are plenty of couples who disagree about money, but they are committed to each other above and beyond their commitment to money. I think money is such a contentious issue because money and love are both tied to our security ultimately. And so it can be easy for money as a loaded issue to get really, people can get really bent out of shape with money because there's a lot of angst and stuff tied into money, because it's also about our survival right here as material beings, spiritual, whatever, but we are in a material world, right? So that's my 2 cents on money and romance. But if we can put love right back where it belongs in terms of how fundamental it is to our lives as humans, it is totally so fundamental. We would probably sooner die without love than without money, I would like to say. We are literally created, our brains are literally wired to connect with another. We are not here to be in silos. There's a reason why solitary confinement is the most the highest form of punishment in prisons. It's because we are not made to be alone, right? And if you're single or whatever, that's fine. I mean, but have friends, right? Have family, have people that you connect with on a regular basis. It's important. There's a book, a really great book called Loneliness that I think was from 2008 by William Patrick and John Cacioppo. I don't know how to say his last name, but Cacioppo was like this he's done a ton of research on loneliness. And actually, loneliness has been found to be even worse for you than smoking or obesity or hypertension, right? It's really, really bad. So I'm saying this because if we put love back where it belongs, which is front and center, and we start helping people have stronger relationships, I don't think that the money issues are going to be as big of these big contentious issues, because here's the thing. A strong relationship, and it doesn't have to, it really comes out the most with our romantic partners, but it's really about being connected to people in general, right? Being connected, that is how we're made. And yet, unfortunately, because of, we could date it back to Descartes or to the, even the foundation of the United States, if you're in the United States, in terms of like independence and autonomy and break away from the mother and all of that. It's been a lot. It's been very backwards. It's been backwards in my field, psychology. It's been backwards in, Western medicine in terms of, object and subject, whatever. I'm going off on a rant, but if we can recognize that we actually are all connected, and that there is strength in that connection, and that if we can privilege that connection and prioritize it, I don't think that we would see such a high divorce rate based on money, right? Because if people can understand how to get their relationships right, they'll know how to have money be in that 70% of issues that are just perpetual. So I'm kind of digressing a little bit, but I hope that this is somewhat helpful. So what happens a lot of the times is that people lose touch with the reason under the reason, right? Like I was kind of saying before. And the real emotional reasons are the things that that are the fuel to keep us connected, but also can be when we're not in touch with those emotional truths that we all have. Our partners get the wrong message because we're exuding the wrong message. And that's when these cycles, terrible cycles of disconnect, can erupt. So if you want to get your partner to do something, I encourage you to ask yourself why. Why is this important to me? And what happens a lot of the time is that people don't ask that question. They can't get real with themselves. They get frustrated, right? It's not that they can't get real with themselves, but they don't give themselves the space or the opportunity, or nobody's, showed them how, right? And as a result, you can get into these like really, really, really polarizing battles with each other, where you're not only out of touch with yourself, but you get further and further away from your partner. So I'll give you an example. Let's suppose I really wanted my husband to work out. And I'd be like, you got to work out. You got to do it. Like, you're a lazy pig. You're a fat slob. Like, he's not a fat slob. I would never say this, but if that's what I started doing, or saying like, oh, like, why don't you, like, just do it. Or if I got angry about it, like, you just kind of, like, if I really like went there, you think that's going to encourage somebody to do something for you, right? It's not even for me. It would be for him ultimately, right? You got to recognize that. No. And what happens a lot, and I think when it comes to like, gosh, this is especially true with heterosexual women and men couples. A lot of the times, I will say, and I'm painting with broad brushstrokes here, so don't quote. So this is not like for everybody, obviously, but for a lot of the heterosexual men and women couples that I've worked with, women can often become the mother, because sometimes, women have a way of doing things or have a certain standard. And it's like, I've heard this more than once, that like the hoop gets lifted higher and higher, and like, she wants me to jump through this hoop. And it's like, your man just wants to make you happy a lot of the times, but no matter what he does, he feels like he can't get it right. So if you're giving that message, whether it's from a critical, a hostile, or a nagging place, it's not going to work, right? It's not going to work. He's just going to get the message that no matter what he does, it's not good enough. He's not going to get it right, and so on and so forth, okay? So the nagging thing, the frustration thing, I encourage you to look at what's happening underneath that. And more often than not, what's happening underneath that is, you know, maybe it could be a fear, like, does he not care about me enough to do this? Do I not matter? Is he really going to be there? What happens? Here's another question people ask, like, what happens when I really need him to do something for me, right? If this man can't put his socks away, and this is not my personal life example because I'm the one who's the messy one in our relationship, but if this man can't put his socks away, how can I trust him to do anything for me, right? And that's like or how can I trust him when, you know, when I really need him, when I'm in crisis, when when something really bad happens, how will he be there for me then if I can't, this tiny trivial little thing that I've asked him 1,000 times to do, right? That's something that comes up a lot. So, so what happens more often than not is that your partner, and I don't know if this is true for you or not, but many times I see that the partner of the person who wants something to get done only sees like a hostile, nagging, critical, like, you can never get this right, like, monster coming out, when what's underneath that monster is usually something that's more of a kitten. Seriously though, really somebody who's just like wants to know that she's important, right? Wants to know that he's going to be there for her, that she matters, that her opinion is valued, that all of the above, right? And so I would encourage you to go underneath that nagging. If you identify with the nagging thing, right? And find out, like, what is it really about, right? And then from that place, be more vulnerable and say, hey, you know what? Like, even say, you know, just let the person know how happy it would make you if XYZ, okay? Like, here's the thing, like, I feel like when you don't do this, that I don't matter to you, that I'm not important, if this is true for you, right? And go there and be like, and even ask, like, do I matter to you, right? What happens a lot of the times is that instead of really kind of touching on that, like, painful, raw, emotional reality that you might be experiencing, and that invisibility that you're experiencing, when people feel invisible in their relationships, you know, or when they feel disconnected, there's really a big branch just fell down from a tree outside there. So that's why I was distracted. I apologize. There's really, if you're feeling disconnected, there's really just about 3 ways that you can deal with it. 2 ways, and then the third is a combination of the 2. But some of us turn things way up and get really loud, which is what I'm talking about here. When you feel invisible, it's like, I'm going to make myself bigger and louder and come out more and be like, yeah, you motherfucker, or whatever, right? And really get loud about it. And then on the other hand, you know, sometimes people turn it way down and just kind of slink away. And a lot of the time, somebody who turns things up and somebody who turns things down get together, and then you can see how there's a problem, because it's like, the louder you get, the more your partner might shrink away and get smaller and quieter, giving you the message that you don't matter even that much more. The louder you get, and the more you scare them away, and around you go, right? So what's the trick? How do you get underneath all that? You got to get underneath all that. And you got to say, all right, wait, are you feeling invisible actually? And you've got to be able to talk about that in a way that doesn't convey the frustration, right? That if you got to tap into your own vulnerability, your own sadness, your own fears, like all of these things that can be very difficult to do. And if you don't have a strong, stable, rock solid relationship, it is an act of courage to be able to put that out there and to share that with your partner. Okay. So that's just the first step though. I mean, the first step really then is to get really clear on what's happening underneath the desire, right? What is it? Why is it important to you that this thing happens, right? Get clear on what that is. And if it is something that is a very contentious issue, or something that, you know, makes you want to bang your head through a wall, is it about the principle? Is it about the issue? Whatever it's about, like, get clear on that and express that from a vulnerable and authentic place, which can be hard to do, right? And it's never, you know, people always come to me and they're like, I need tools. Like, we just need tools to communicate. I can't even tell you how many couples have come to me and be like, we just need tools to communicate, right? It's never about, and some people will teach you, I statements or whatever kind of like trick in terms of like, just say it like this, or just say this, or just say this, or, use these words, right? And people have like literally scribbled down things that I've said to say to their partner. It's never about that, because your partner is not listening to your words. Your partner is hearing what you're saying from an emotional place. Alan Shore is a neuroscientist who calls this, or a psychologist actually, who calls this right brain to right brain communication. Because when you're in love with someone, or when you're in a relationship with somebody that's important, and this is true, I think, way beyond just our significant others, we have what's called this right brain to right brain communication, where we are communicating emotionally all the time. So it's like, if I said to you, I love you, like, that's not what you're going to hear. You're going to hear like wrath, right? You're going to hear, whoa, you did something wrong, right? So it's important to really know what kind of space that you're in emotionally, and get really kind of like aligned with that on all levels. Because what happens a lot of the times is that people give mixed messages, and your partner doesn't pick up what you're saying. They pick up what you're feeling, sometimes before you might not even recognize what you're feeling. And that triggers them into this spiral of like, oh God, I can't get it right. Right? All right. So the first piece is then getting aligned with your emotional reality and expressing it from that raw and vulnerable place. That's very difficult to do. That requires a risk. And if you're asking for something, it can be really hard to ask for something, because there's a big chance that maybe your partner won't show up for you in the way that you're asking. And that's scary and hard and difficult. And what you do from there is really, you have to weigh out like, okay, how do we get on the same page with this? It's not that easy. But if you can do that, right, if you can be vulnerable, if you can put it on the line, the thing from there to do is to really, like I said, surrender and let it go, and recognize, okay, this is not your life. It's your partner's life. They've got to be able to, make their own decision. Again, if I had asked my partner to give up comic books, there's no part of him that would have wanted to do that. Like, there's no way. That would never happen, right? Why would I want that for him anyway, if he loves comic books, right? But I asked, I was like, why did you quit smoking? And he was like, well, you had something to do with it. I knew you wouldn't be cool with it, but I also knew it was a disgusting habit, right? And look, I mean, no judgment, but that's how he felt. That's how I feel. And it's true. Now, I want you all to be like the chick that Snoop Dogg and, John Legend are singing about, the one that I was before I didn't even have to blink an eye and he stopped smoking. I didn't have to ask him to go work out recently. He did it on his own accord, right? But you have to surrender and let go, and trust the person to make the decision on their own, right? But I also, one of the reasons too, I'm like, so what made you decide to go kickboxing? I'm just doing my research. We were out running the other day, and I was like, yeah, so I'm giving this training. And he was like, yeah, well, you have something to do with it. Like, I knew you want me to, but I also, I know that you work out and it makes you feel good. And, you gotta show, don't tell, right? You gotta be the change, as Gandhi says, right? Gandhi, be the change. I hope. Mahatma Gandhi, I think he said that, right? So that's what I got for you guys. I hope that this is helpful. I'm just looking to see, I did write a couple things down. But what's really important, I mean, if you can take away anything from this, I hope that you take away, and stay tuned. I want to see if you guys have questions. I'm here to answer them. I also want to tell you about an opportunity that I have coming up for you. But the main points I want you to remember is, like, we've got to treat each other with a lot of respect and be really grateful for each other. And if you want that from your partner, give it to them. I didn't say that in so many words, but that's what Tony Robbins meant when he, I'm sure Tony and I were talking about it, and that's what he said he meant. I'm just kidding. But when he says, do the things that you did in the beginning of the relationship, and there will be an end, right? There's another piece that I talk about in the program that I'm going to be telling you about, which is about knowing what your non-negotiables are, right? So for me, I know that right now, if my husband just, goes running with me here and there on the weekends and it doesn't ever work out, like, that's not a deal breaker for me. Like, I love the guy too much. Like, that's not going to end things for me. So that's part of surrendering and letting it go. If he was, however, doing something that was, if I wanted him to change something else that was a deal breaker, well, that's a different story. Like, if he was shooting up a bag of heroin a night, we would have a lot more problems. Thankfully that's not happening. So I don't have to deal with that, but that would be, that would be like, yo, I'm out of here if you don't stop that. And that would either get him to stop or I'd be out of there. Right. And that's a little bit more of that's a very black and white, cut and dry, well, at least for me, example. But I think it's important to recognize, and this can change, but it is important to recognize what's non-negotiable and what's not. So that being said, I am we don't have that many people here. So actually, you know what, I'm going to tell you guys quickly about an opportunity that I have, and then I'm going to stop the recording and take your questions, so that if you don't want your recording being sent out or being recorded, your questions, then, to respect your privacy. So I have an opportunity for anybody who's watching this, and this is a 24-hour type thing. I'm releasing a new program. Well, it's actually not a new program, but I'm sharing a program that I just finished recently. It's called Revolutionize Your Love. And it's for you if you are single or if you are in a relationship. I'm going to talk about this for 5 minutes, okay? If that. So don't leave if you're here on the call. Basically, this program is, it's really for you if you're single, if you're in a relationship, but you want to really step things up. You really want to, understand even more in depth about the foundation of a solid relationship. We obviously talked about that quite a bit here, and we can go more into depth with that. It's an opportunity to get, laser coaching with me. We have a few group calls, and I've gotten some really good feedback about it. I think it's, I honestly feel that if we can figure out how to get this love thing right, it's the most important thing, and everything else will flow from there. So this is a 6-week program. We start April 4th. I have 6 modules of training in it for you. We're going to talk about, I'm just going to go through them real quick. The first one is about this new science of love, some of which I've already shared with you. We'll talk about your blueprint in love, your own sort of, how you can get love right for you. There are exercises in here. It's really something that you take a deep dive in your own life with, and how to really, use this revolutionary new science of love so that you can have your absolute best relationship. In the second training, I talk all about emotions, why they are so important. Sue Johnson calls them music in the dance of relationships, and how you can really get much more intimate with your own emotions. It's very important. Many of us, before I learned this emotional therapy approach, I was very much in my head. And so when I first started working with couples, I was like, shit, like, get me out of here. I didn't know what I was doing. It was really bad. So I knew I had to get training because it wasn't working, because relationships are all about emotions, right? And so I learned how to deal with people's emotions as well as my own, thank God, right? And it's really important, especially for people like us who live in our heads. I'm not saying you do necessarily, but I know I can from time to time, to know how to really get online with your emotions. That's huge, okay? Now, the third module is, I think, one of the things that sets this apart as well from some of the other programs out there. We talk about your pitfalls in love and in your relationships in general. I got some really good feedback from someone that said that, this was somebody who was just like silent throughout the duration of the program. I didn't know how she felt about it, what she felt about it, but she said that after taking, reading nearly every book that there was out there on relationships and doing all kinds of trainings, this one was different largely because of this section. This is actually taken from another form of therapy called schema therapy. And it's basically about your pitfalls and your patterns and different lenses that you look at the world through that kind of can set you up for failure, not failure, but can set you up for creating the same kinds of negative perpetual patterns in love and relationships that don't serve you. And this doesn't have to be with romantic partners. This can be with anybody. This can be with friends. This can be even in situations, even in your business if you're an entrepreneur. You don't have to be, but that is the third module. In the fourth module, we talk about your patterns in love. And, we started to touch on that a little bit in here. I maybe gave it a couple minutes, but, how do you really show up? Are you somebody who turns things up when things get difficult, or do you turn them down and go cold, right? So when you can understand your own patterns, you can also start to understand other people's patterns as well. And it's really a great tool to be able to know, not a tool, but a great set of knowledge and a great understanding of people that will help you with anything. Now, another thing that comes up a lot is that, we talked about your personal pitfalls in love, but something that happens all too often is that people wind up with the absolute wrong kind of partner, right? And we talk more specifically about red flags and warning signs and boundaries and things that are really important when you get involved with someone else, as well as, like I said, communication, right? And trust is important, but communication, basic communication, how to build trust. We talk a lot about forgiveness and how to know the difference between when you're settling in a relationship and when you're compromising. We all want to be flexible. We all want to compromise. So anyway, I said it'd be 5 minutes. I'm going to wrap this part out to see if you guys have questions, but go to mybestrelationship.com/revolutionize your love. Now, here's the cool part. I've got bonuses thrown in. I have an audio with two audio trainings with two of my very dear colleagues. Sophia Lennox, who is a confidence coach. She's awesome. She does one audio training. And then Cher Ross, who is a just phenomenal musician. She's, I think Vixen is the only platinum selling all-female 80s rock band that she's the bassist in, and she's just done so much. So she talks about unleashing your inner rock star. Those are two bonuses. And if any of you guys have done my first round of this code course and you're watching, I have a really cool thing for you as well. This is for everybody, but this part is new. I'm unleashing my inner rock star. No, I'm just kidding. I'm unleashing a membership program pretty soon, and you get 2 free months in that. And that's going to involve 2 programs that I've already put together. One of them is Make Love Work, the Entrepreneur's Guide to Prospering in Love and Profiting in Business. So this is something that I put together last year that I'm really proud of. There is some overlap. There's overlap with a lot of the things that I do, but this is more specifically for business owners. So this course was priced at $9.97. You get it for free. If you join the membership club, the site, again, you get 2 free months in there. So that's yours for free, as well as a course that I did with my colleague, Rick Gabrielli, AKA the Marriage Boss. He also empowers entrepreneurs to be their best in love. And we did a course together called Love Bonds, 3 weeks to savoring the fruits of richer financial communication, where we talk all about money and love. And I address this again briefly in this training today, but that course is also yours for the taking. I believe the original price on that was $297. So I know right now you can get it for $147. But anyway, those 2 extra bonuses are yours free just for joining us. And if you were in the first class, I'm going to give you guys an option to join up the membership group for free because you've already gotten all the other stuff. So that I'm really excited about. I have this information that is too good not to share. I'm so this is stuff that I'm putting out there that, therapists may be aware of, they may not be aware of. But I think it's really too important to keep on the couches of therapists. So that's what I want to share with you. So mybestrelationship.com/revolutionize your love. And if you're watching this webinar, I have a special where if you join by, you're watching it now and you sign up in the next 24 hours, I'm going to gift you a one-on-one session with me. So I have a 90-minute intensive program that's on my website that's sold for almost $600. So this is a pretty big value as well to get a one-on-one session with me. So that's just for the next 24 hours. But the other bonuses you get, for whenever you sign up. Obviously in the next less than 2 weeks because we start on the 4th. So that's all I got about the program. Thank you for bearing with me. I didn't want this to be a whole long sales spiel. I want to thank you for watching this. If you guys are on live, stay with me. I'm just going to stop the recording. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in Revolutionize Your Love.